did at least the reputation that your father had help you on the inside in prison? Were people scared of you? Did you have a target on your back because of the reputation your family had and your father had? Or was it of some help at least when you were in prison?
That's a great question, Dan. What prison was for me, I had self-surrendered to a camp in Oxford, Wisconsin. And if you heard of Club Fed, that it was a camp and it was a Club Fed. It was a nice place to be. I mean, it was still prison, but it was a nice place to be. There were no fences, bars. There were no, you could walk right off the campgrounds and nobody would, nobody would see you and it wouldn't make a difference. I mean, you'd get in trouble if you got caught, and so I did 7 months there, and then I got shipped out of there and I got shipped downtown to the MCC in downtown Chicago. I went from a camp that's laid back where nobody bothers anybody. It's just people doing their time, to a place that's really considered a maximum security prison, the MCC. So from that, things had changed. And first of all, being Italian in prison, you were looked at a little differently. You weren't looked at as really white. You were looked at as Italian. But at the time I was away, things were changing quickly, and there weren't a lot of Italians where I was. There weren't a lot of Italians. There were a handful, and so it worked for me in some ways. It worked against me in some ways. It worked for me because I was Italian and people knew a little bit of the background of my family, so but there were also a lot of young guys there, young gangbanger guys who were trying to make a name for themselves. So I had a few problems, nothing major, but I had a few problems. And so if that answers your question, it was both. It helped in some ways, it hurt in some ways.
Did you ever have to fight off somebody in prison? Like, did somebody ever try to take your life and you tried to defend yourself, or is that just in the movies, or did that actually happen? Or
I only had one situation that came to that, and it kind of got resolved pretty quickly, but it could have gotten ugly. And again, it was with a young guy who was a gangbanger who was trying to make a name for himself. And I was in the kitchen working. I was only one of very few white people at that. And so I was kind of singled out by these guys, this kid. And it all worked out, but it could have gotten uglier than it did, but it all worked out. And most of the guards I didn't have problems with when I was away. I had more problems with the administration because, like I said, now I look back and think, okay, now it made sense to me why they were treating me the way they were treating me, because it was around the same time that my brother was cooperating. So I got shipped. And to be honest with you, I went in to prison with a chip on my shoulder. I shouldn't say I went into prison with it. When I got there, my first experience walking into the camp was I got whistled into the warden's office. And like I said, I just got in there and self-surrendered. So I didn't do anything. And I got brought into this man's office, and he sat behind his desk, told me to sit down, and he immediately started yelling at me and banging the desk. And what I saw was my dad. When he started doing that, I saw my dad. And I thought, okay, here I put up with this my whole life. Here I'm now in prison. I'm in prison. Well, you can't send me anywhere place worse than you could send me in prison. The only other place is the hole in prison, which I was in too. So, if this is the worst that you can do to me, I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not going to sit there and have you scream and yell at me unless I did something wrong. If I did something wrong, tell me. I'll accept responsibility. But the guy told me when I went there, I don't like you. I don't like your kind. And I'm going to get you shipped out of here. I don't know what he meant by my kind, but he got me shipped out of there. Exactly what he said he was going to do. He got me shipped out of there. And it went, like I said, I went from a very laid back setting to now a maximum security setting overnight, and within a 5-hour bus ride